To get analysis following the South African Police Service arresting 10 police officers in Johannesburg for alleged theft and corruption. The officers were arrested during a raid by the Tactical Response Team. We'll continue our conversation with POP Crew, and that is the South African Prisons and Police Civil Rights Union. We'll speak to Richard Mamabolo from there. Richard, welcome back. Just going back to the last question, I was essentially saying that these arrests, so these 10 police officers, come at a time where crime and corruption have really reached crisis levels. Something, of course, that was confirmed recently by one of the chairs of the G20 Anti-Corruption Working Group. Especially when you consider that, some of these allegations made recently, they do speak of a possibility that the SAPs may be infiltrated by criminal syndicates. I mean, in light of these arrests, does the union accept that some elements within the police may have become infiltrated by these criminal syndicates, even captured?
Look, we do accept that that might be the case. Of course, there are, as you would know, processes which are currently unfolding. But however, in light of this specific case, we want to highlight that as much as there might be certain wrongdoings within the SAPS, at whatever level, of course, one of the things that we have always cherished as a union has been the fact that, there have always been members of the SAPS who, by the way, would be the ones who are responsible for ensuring that they expose all this rot. And that has been happening when you look at, annual statistics that reflect on the number of charges that have been, acted upon some of the members of the SAPS. So as much as there might be some of these elements, to what extent they are, it's something that we cannot be sure of. But we definitely know that there are still a lot of men and women in blue who are committed to serving the people of South Africa. Hence, you have got one of these arrests that has been taking place today. But be that as it may, of course, at this stage, we do appreciate that there are due processes that have to be followed. And ultimately, at the end of these processes, we will actually get to understand as to what whether these allegations are genuine or not.
And of course, when we look at, this particular story very closely, we understand, of course, that the 10, 6 of them belonging to the AMPD and 4 to SAPS, that, they were arrested following this particular raid, and items that were in their possession. Some items were confiscated and bagged as part of the evidence collected. We were talking earlier about just leading up to the arrest. One would imagine that at some level, whistleblowers were at play here. What role should the union play in encouraging whistleblowing and the protection of officers, who report corruption within particularly its ranks?
Yeah, look, we've always encouraged people to come out. In fact, there's no way in which police can actually do their job to the expected standards without the involvement of communities. That is why, as a union, we've been emphasizing on what we call police-community relations. Because at the end of the day, all information that would lead to certain arrests or to eradicating criminal activities or syndicates is always information that comes from community members, because they are the ones who live there, they are the ones who understand what is happening. So the relationship between communities and police is one of the things that we value as a union. And of course, we continue through all our platforms to engage our members on this importance and ensuring that they build such trust, because ultimately, if there isn't such any trust, the likelihood of certain information being uncovered remains a mile away, really.
And just speaking about trust, I want to take it back to the community in the context of rising crime and this widespread public fear. How does the union propose to rebuild trust between law enforcement and the public in this case?
One of the initiatives that we have always ensured that we support have always been community policing forums, but as well as taking it to an extra mile by working with Safer South Africa Foundation, which mainly focuses on primary teaching of high school learners about the criminal justice cluster, and of course the role that they need to play in ensuring that we obviously have got a complementing capacity in terms of how young people perceive perceive crime and how they actually will play a meaningful role in working towards ensuring that their communities and their schooling environments are safe places. So we believe that in the long run, those would obviously yield positive results in combating the general crime trends that we find in the country.